All right. We are live Wednesday, October 13th for the Just Joe King podcast. I am one half of the podcast king.
And I'm Joe. What's
And
up?
we are, hey man, we gonna do a little bit of switcheroo. Boom. Put you on that side, me on this side, so that we got Joe King. I don't think people are gonna care about that, but it's the technical stuff that
Makes
makes me
sense.
smile. How's it going, brother?
It's going, man. How you been?
Hey man, it's been good. It has been good. Me and you saw each other the other day when we went to the movie to see that James Bond. What'd you think about the movie, man?
I loved it. I thought it was a good send off. I honestly, and this is probably going to be a little controversial, but I feel like that should be the end of the James Bond franchise. Like the
Huh?
total James Bond experience. I think to please future audiences, what we should do, and I'm not saying to stop making 007 movies. What I'm saying is James Bond, the character, I think I think it's time to move on from him, but still continue the mythos of the 007 moniker and the whole MI6, all that stuff, and just make a new character. It doesn't have to be a man, it doesn't have to be a woman, it doesn't have to be anybody. What I'm saying is start something new, be creative, try something different, but we can still keep it in the 007 universe. I think that's what this could be. I think this is a good stopping point for James Bond.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Who has been your favorite James Bond actor?
So that's a tough one because I actually like some of the Bonds who people consider to be bad James Bonds. Um, Sean Connery's always going to be numero uno because he was able to have a swagger that not a lot of them have been able to recapture. But the hard part about it is also during a time that you can't be or do those things anymore. So you got to recognize that how he was in his movies is unacceptable by today's standards. But at that time, he was the man. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so Sean Connery's always number one. Um, our man Goldeneye. I mean, he was I can't remember. I've blanked on his name just now too. But Goldeneye is one of my all-time favorite James Bond, so I'd probably have him as number two, and I'd honestly put Daniel Craig as either three or four.
Your order and my order are the exact same. I mean, I
Nice.
was introduced to Bond with Sean Connery. All right,
Hmm.
so that was my definition of, hey man, if this is how Bond's gonna be, which who Bond back in the day would get canceled in today's
Oh, so
culture.
canceled, so canceled.
And he'd be canceled so damn fast. Oh,
But but again, it was a different time, and a few of the things were problematic in those movies, but they weren't overtly bad. Some of them were, yeah, okay. So yeah, it's hard to justify some of that stuff, but I really enjoyed what they did in this one.
Mhm.
I felt like they introduced some new characters who could have a potential future in future movies if they choose to continue from this timeline, which I really like. I'd really love to see Anna de Armas's character. She was phenomenal, absolutely gorgeous, and such a badass for the few minutes that she was in the film. Where like even James Bond was like, huh, yeah, only 3 weeks of training, huh? You know what I mean? Like she showed that she could hold her own and kick ass in a room full of bad guys, just like James Bond. Um, there's another 007 they introduced in the movie, which I really love. Her character is fantastic, and I'd really love to see her continue on. Um, I think that they have all the building blocks to continue this timeline with a new set of characters who could represent 007, the CIA, the NSA, or whomever the other players are in the universe. I think there's a lot of potential there. So it was a great movie, a great way to say farewell to Daniel Craig and welcome some new people into the fold. I was super disappointed about one death in the movie. I won't ruin it for anybody. I won't spoil it. It's too early for that. We could talk about it again in another week or two, and then we could spoil some things. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a good movie, solid film. Remy Malek was absolutely captivating.
He bodied
Bron-
that character.
yes, he did. Right? He was this perfect combination of. You remember the old bad guys in the Bond franchises?
Hmm.
I feel like he captured that essence
Yes.
in a
Yes.
in a future setting, which I didn't think was possible. I feel like they're so tropey and just so old school, like megamaniac bad guy, and he just captured that vibe and did it. He did it in such a great way. I loved Remy Malek's character. He was amazing.
Yep. For those of y'all watching, if you've seen the Bond movie, let me know what your general thoughts on it without any spoilers. If you're catching this on the replay, type
Yeah.
down in the comments on YouTube or Facebook, www.facebook.com/ just joking podcast is where you can find us. Glad
Hmm.
to always have the live watchers on as we're doing this. It makes the interaction a little bit
Yeah,
more,
it's always fun to
better.
incorporate people. Yeah.
Yep. I got one additional statement, and then and then I'm going to transition us. Do you remember before they were doing filming of this one, where there was an uproar about there's going to be a black 007 and it shouldn't be that way because it'll ruin the character? I don't know if you recall hearing all of
Oh,
that noise.
yeah, there's all of that noise. But see, and Daniel Craig said something important too, and I agree with him and I disagree with him at the same time. So here let me lay this out for you, and this actually kind of plays into our overall topic of hypocrisy too. So Daniel Craig said that instead of replacing James Bond with a woman or a person of color or anything like that, write new roles for people to have new chances to participate. And I think that's an important thing to remember because it's okay to have a white Superman or a white James Bond. That's okay. It's not okay when every character is white or every character is the same because that's boring. So I'm not saying to replace the characters we have. It's okay to recognize them and to acknowledge that they exist. What we can do is create new characters but make them on par or as badass as some of the other characters and people we've seen and come to enjoy and stuff like that. Like you can't say that we can't replace Superman with a black actor and then make a character and Superman's still light years more powerful than him or just cooler than him. Then that's still not fair. Like it's not the same thing. Like I uh great one of the great lines from the movie Hobbs and Shaw was when Idris Elba was kicking ass and he's like, I'm Black Superman. And honestly, in that movie, in that role, he was a badass. And that's the kind of thing we need to see. I'm not saying replace Superman or James Bond with a black actor or person of color or a woman. What I'm saying is make a 007, give him a new name, have him kick ass in the same universe, as good as James Bond was, or better. Like he doesn't have to be the pinnacle of all that is man. You know what I mean? Anna de Armas could be the next Double O 007. The 007 that they had in the movie, I can't remember her name, and I'm doing her such a disservice for not remembering her name.
I'm just bad with names.
Yeah, she could be 007. She was 007, and that's not spoiling anything. But that's the key. That's the trick is to create new roles and give them the same potential to be great. The problem, the hypocrisy, Hollywood doesn't want to take a chance on something that's not tried and tested. That's where getting new characters of color, of sex, of orientation, that's where the challenges lie. Like, you and I can say we want it, everybody can say they want it. Hollywood doesn't see a return on investment, they're not gonna invest. So that's, we all want to see something different, because 14 movies of James Bond is enough. Honestly, personally, story wise, we can keep doing it if you want to. We can change it like Batman every few years, or Bond really is the trend of a new Bond every 4 or 5 movies. But I think it's okay to say goodbye to James Bond and welcome a new 007. And it could be anyone, and that's the beauty of it. Like, I'd love to see Idris Elba play a James Bond like character. I think
Yeah.
he would be I think he'd be amazing. But don't I think to give him James Bond as a role is to cheapen Idris Elba. Not
Hmm.
not the other way around, where it cheapens James Bond. It cheapens Idris
Interesting.
Elba, because Idris Elba could bring nuance and character to another character completely. I mean, look at Luther.
Yeah,
I mean,
Luther is, oh man,
he's
like I that show
oh
was fantastic. But I
yes.
talk to people and they're like they haven't seen it. I'm like,
Oh,
you have to
you
check it
need
out.
to. You need to. But that's the thing. Think about these actors in the different roles that they do, and then say, now you have to be James Bond. Like, that's cheapening the actor. The actor has more range and potential to be somebody else. Like, I'd love to see one of my favorite characters in this current James Bond franchise was Leiter, Felix Leiter. I loved his character. Let's do a franchise about him. Get a younger actor to play young Felix Leiter, and let's see about him. And then he can interact with other people from the James Bond mythos too. Make it a CIA movie in the 007 universe. That kind of thing we can do. And don't get me wrong, Edgar Wright as Felix Leiter. I mean, he was the Watcher in Marvel's What If. He's amazing. Anything he does, I will tune into. He's going to be our next Gordon in Batman. So
Nice.
yeah, so yeah, I think we need to open up the door to some new roles, but not necessarily take the old ones and just make them something other people can step into. You know what I mean?
I'm with it.
Yeah.
I'm with it. All right. Okay. Now we are going to roll into. Whoosh. I almost got my soundboard
Ooh, fun
ready.
fact.
Fun facts. Okay. So this fun fact spawned from a conversation that I had with my 14-year-old. All right.
Hmm.
So, she's in school learning as one should be doing. And she goes, Dad, I got a question for you. I said, shoot.
Hmm.
She said, what is the most visited country in the world according to the World Tourism Organization? I had an answer and I was wrong. My second
Hmm.
answer was wrong. And my third answer was wrong. So
Okay.
before I reveal what it is, Joe, take a stab at it. And to those that are watching live, what do you think, according to the World Tourist Organization, and if you're watching live, don't Google it, is the most visited country, and according to the World Tourism Organization, 2018, most visited country?
I'm gonna go with something in the Caribbean, maybe the Bahamas. Then I'm gonna go with something in Europe with no extradition, uh, where people like to hide a lot of their money, like maybe Switzerland. And then I'm going to cap it off with Japan, because I think a lot of people want to go there. I think it's a brilliant place with a lot of culture and some amazing cool stuff, man.
Okay, so me and you were kind of on the same train of thought pattern. All right, the one that I said that was the same as yours was Switzerland.
Hmm.
So I'm going to give number three, number two, and then number one. So number
Okay.
three is the U.S. The U.S. is the third most visited country in the world. All right, the second was Spain. That didn't
See,
surprise me. I
that
don't
that
know why I didn't
doesn't
think
surprise
about
me.
it,
Yeah,
but it didn't
same.
surprise me.
It actually crossed my mind for a second. I was like, but maybe the Caribbean more. But okay, let's hear number one.
Number one, according to the World Tourism Organization 2018 study, France is the most visited country in the world. Now, for those of y'all that don't know, because I've talked about this all the time, I don't think I've talked about it on the Just Joking podcast. I've traveled around the world like
Same.
3 or 4 times. I've never been to France,
I have.
the most visited country in the world, and I've never been to it. It's on my list of places to go. It seems like a couple of times that I wanted to go in the past, I was in the military and something always came up. But yeah, France, man. So you've been. How was it?
Yes, beautiful. We didn't go to all the touristy places. We actually went to like the Musargon, and we went to uh, beaches of Normandy. We went to a lot of the World War I and World War II sites, and that's where we spent most of our time. St. Mary Glees. We went to a lot of those places.
I
It
didn't
was
hear nude beaches on the places that you went to go and visit,
nope,
Joe.
nope, nope. All military centric stuff, unfortunately, but fortunately too at the same time. Yeah, beautiful place, a lot of culture, so much culture, and so much influence from America into those locations, and surprisingly, a lot of influence from Germany too, in the locations where Germany occupied a lot of the parts of France, and they retained that culture. So like they didn't just expel it after the war. They actually retained some of the culture that was there during that time.
Okay.
Amazing. Yeah.
All right. So yep, that was my um fun fact of the day. And before we get into the main topic, I want to share one crazy story
Mm.
that had me it made me laugh, man. All right. So, whoosh, crazy story.
Whoosh.
So, Joe, you are currently married, but you
Hmm.
were previously married.
Hmm.
All right.
Twice.
What's think of twice, twice previously married. If you wanted to get back with an ex-wife, which it's hard for you to imagine this because you are with a fantastic woman now, but if you were
Yeah.
to want to get back with an ex-wife, what crazy scheme would you think of to try to profess your love and win the good graces back of an ex-wife?
Well, first off, I can't imagine that, but to like win a woman over, maybe. I mean, with my current wife, I didn't really. I tried a lot and failed a lot. But I did like Urkel and I wore her down. Wearing you down,
Wearing you down,
wearing
baby.
you down. We all know that reference. um, but I don't. I'm not the type of person to do something crazy, so I don't know. I'm very curious as to where this story is headed.
All right. So I'm going to share an article of what I thought was a crazy story. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for the people that are watching. So
Wow,
it goes Master Manipulator kidnapped his ex wife so that he could pretend to save her. All right. So the way that the story reads, when I read this, I thought it was definitely a Florida story because all the crazy stories happen in Florida. But it's a Georgia man who kidnapped his ex-wife so he could then pretend to rescue her, has been sentenced to 25 years in prison. Ronald William Metzer, 36, hatched the insane plan in a bid to win back his former flame after a fake cancer diagnosis failed to spark the reconciliation that he hoped for. Bro,
wow,
just stop there. Stop there. And just like Beth said, you said it, I thought it, and Beth wrote it down. So we got all forms of communication here.
yeah,
Wow.
wow,
Wow. All right. So when he spoke to her, he disguised his voice. Um, he smacked her with the butt of his gun and tried to strangle her a couple of times, zip tied her, and assaulted her. Then placed his helpless ex-wife on her deck, telling her not to move until she heard a car honking or else she'd be shot. Wow. While his ex-wife was still tied up, he went back to his apartment to change his clothes before returning to find his former partner still tied up. He told the cops that he found her bound with zip ties on her deck while face down with the pillowcase over her head. Investigators later found surveillance showing Metzer leaving a Lowe's while carrying a pack of zip ties, and other footage showed him change his clothes at his apartment, contradicting his claims about the whereabouts. His whereabouts was prior to the assault. He was also found searching terms on his laptop, how long before you starve to death and how long it takes to choke someone until they're unconscious. I
Good
mean,
lord.
this dude was hatching schemes to try to get back with someone who, I don't, maybe they were together. It doesn't say, yeah, how long that they were married, or if they have any kids together, but they
Yeah.
were married. That's insane. That is insane. There's somebody in the comments, Miss Beth wrote, that's one crazy MFer. Absolutely. And John Thompson says, the name says it all that I need to know. You know what's funny? When you have people and these stories and they put up the names and you read the names and go, that sound like the name of somebody that would do some shit like that. Like,
Yeah.
dude, you ever see those names and you just go, yeah, he looked
Yeah.
like, he'd do something like that.
I feel like
Crazy,
that's coming
man.
out. I feel like that should be coming out of Florida. Like
Right,
that's
right.
Florida, man.
This sounds like a straight up Florida story. So I was surprised when it
Hmm.
said a Georgia man. This is out of Cherokee County, Georgia. So that was the crazy story for the episode. And I need to make sure that I put that link into the comments for, enter- entertainment or edutainment purposes, if you will.
Edutainment.
Edutainment. So before we transition over, these are stories, and I know that they're far fetched. They're way off. I share these stories with my daughter, right? Because my daughter's 14, freshman in high school, still in a protective kind of bubble, if you will. But
Mm.
let's be real. Kids these days have access to the world in the palm of their hands. My daughter's had a cell phone since she was, I think, 8. You know what I'm saying? Now, we were very restrictive on stuff that she could go and access and her screen time back then. But like, I think and I feel as though they have way more knowledge about stuff than what we did when we was their age, because of things like the World Wide Web and having
Hmm.
information in your hand.
Yeah.
All right. So the topic for this episode: hypocrites. Dum dum dum.
Gotta work on that soundboard.
Gotta get the soundboard working, man. Are we all hypocrites? So, for those of y'all that this may be your first time catching a full episode of ours, Joe never knows the topics beforehand until I created and set it up, all right, as like the quote unquote producer or whatever. But we keep it that way on purpose because I want Joe to come in with a fresh perspective, not having any type of bias coming in. So as I'm bringing stuff up, he doesn't know beforehand what led up to the subjects or why we're talking about what we're talking about. What's been funny is that some of the word of the days that he's had have led to or been kind of close with, what we've been talking about. So let's see if that streak keeps going. But today we're talking about hypocrites. Now, why did I bring this up, Joe? I made a Facebook or a social media post on what's called stories or reels. So
Hmm.
this is where you can post a picture up and it stays up for like 24 hours and anybody can view it. And once it's gone, it's gone. All right. It doesn't stay up there like in perpetuity. I don't know if I said that right. It doesn't stay
You
up there
did.
forever.
You did.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Tell you, man, I'm trying to learn these big words. Um, so there's one particular area that has roundabouts, and roundabouts are, instead of coming up to like a four-way stop sign, you do a little circular thing. There's more of a yield situation. Then you come to a stop and you just get in where you fit in and get off wherever you have to get off at on the roundabout. In 3 weeks, coming up to these same roundabouts, there's two of them within like not even a half a mile time span. I've witnessed cars on the curb of the roundabout. All right. And in my eyes, there's only two ways that can happen. One, you're just distracted, not paying attention to the roundabout and the roads as you're coming across it, and you just boom, jump right onto it. Or two, all right, you could be coming in the roundabout at the same time as somebody's coming around. Uh, one of y'all don't see each other because you're distracted again. Because if you're paying attention to the road, to me, accidents should never happen if you're paying attention. All right, um, or it should never happen like outside of an animal or something running onto the road. So the other situation would be somebody maybe doing something and you have to make a maneuver, and now you're stuck up on this curb. All three times I took a picture. All three times they were female drivers. All three times they were Asian female drivers. So I made a post, and at the end of my post, I mentioned that all three of the drivers in the accidents, which one I stopped to help out, because I was literally right behind them, like I saw it occur. And I decided to pull over just to make sure that they were okay. The person was obviously hysterical, and because like their car was jacked, like I mean, like the single car damage, it was bad. Um, but I had some people comment on why I had to highlight or bring up that it was Asian females, and one in particular actually wrote me and said, "Stop perpetuating Asian stereotypes." 4 words, just like that. And I was surprised that this person wrote me back because me and this person know each other, but we don't really engage like back and forth on social media, like when they post something I like, or vice versa. So for this person to reach out to me and actually write that, it struck something or whatever. All
Yeah.
right. But then I go on social media today and I see this. And this person writes, who's Asian. Every Asian child has played Squid Game, which is this popular show on Netflix that started the game traction. I still haven't watched it yet, so I
Hmm.
don't know what it's about. But then they go on and finish writing, goes to school, gets a B, wonders if they can go home tonight because to gamble with your grades is to gamble with your life. All right. That was the person's post. But as I read that, as I scrolled through, I'm like, isn't that perpetuating an
Yeah, it's
Asian
perpetuating
stereotype?
a stereotype for sure.
Like, can that person do that because they're Asian and I can't? Is that why they decided to bring it up to me? So I just,
See, and that's
what are the rules?
see, and that's the thing. Like, either all stereotypes are bad or none of them are. You get and that gotta be careful with that statement, but you can't tell somebody they can't perpetuate stereotypes and then you perpetuate stereotypes. Like I'm not a huge fan of stereotypes, truthfully, but do I find myself feeling like some of them are true? Absolutely. Are they true? Probably not. It's just funny that they sometimes line up with fact. And not all stereotypes are about making a group or a population of people seem bad or
Hmm.
stupid, or it's not meant to marginalize them. I mean, to say that the Asian community tries to excel to higher learning, I don't feel like that's a negative stereotype, but it's a stereotype that a lot of us have, because of. But why do we have them? Because what we see in entertainment, unless you know 1,000 Asian families, our real basis for interpretation of that is what we've seen in real life and what we've seen on TV.
Hmm.
That's our entire set of information to gather from. So if you have a stereotype, you've either heard it from a friend or you've seen it on TV in a movie. So we're not necessarily the ones perpetuating the stereotypes. Media is, and we take it and we run with it. So we've heard this and we've seen it in loads of movies where they show the Great White Hope driver driving down the road and some Asian woman cuts him off and she flips him the bird. And so now every time we've seen an Asian driver get into something, aha, like in the movie, doesn't doesn't make it real, doesn't make it true. It's just reinforced by the bullshit we've seen on TV and in movies. Who honestly, they're just reflecting the things that they've heard or seen. I guarantee some directors like I got cut off by an Asian person once. There must all be shitty drivers. Put it in the movie. And then everybody's like, oh, Asian drivers are bad. That's not fucking true. None of it is true. They like to say Puerto Ricans love knives. I take fucking great offense to that as I polish my knife collection. You know what I mean? Like some of the stereotypes feel like they fit only because they match some people sometimes. But lots of people do the same things. Lots of people are bad drivers. I can guarantee I name an entire population of people that represents the greatest combination of cultures, races, creeds, and colors and everything. So like anybody who's is 19, 18, 17, 16 right now is probably a bad driver. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
that's not because it's a population of people. It's because they're probably on their phone, and I don't have to see that on TV to know that it's happening because I've seen it happen in my life. You know what I mean? And in enough quantity to gather that that's feels like fact. Feels like fact. It doesn't make it a fact. Feels like it because that's my experience. So, first off, if I'm going to tell you to stop perpetuating stereotypes, I should not be perpetuating stereotypes. That's hypocrisy. Cuz either they're all bad or none of them are bad. You get what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's it's and you're going to find loads of people who are like it's okay sometimes or it's never okay. But I think that as we get deeper and deeper into the culture of cancel, you know, it's I think stereotypes are okay as long as they're not hateful. Hurtful is one thing, but that's subjective. I like to laugh at stereotypes. Do I base any of my interactions with people on stereotypes? No. Do I
Exactly.
do I tell stereotypes to people? No. Do I internally chuckle at them sometimes? Yes. Especially the ones about Puerto Ricans. I think they are fucking hilarious. Are they true? Some of them feel true, but that doesn't mean that my culture is diminished because they say we like rice and beans. Guess what? We fucking love rice and beans. Is that a stereotype? Maybe. But we love rice and beans, so I mean, keep talking. You know what I mean? Like you gotta learn which sword to die on too. In your situation with what you were talking about, you saw 3 Asian women get into a car accident. That does not mean all Asian women are bad drivers. And that's something you have to be careful with as you portray the information to other people. But even if you're asking the community, is this a thing? They're going to say you're perpetuating a stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
If you said, are all women drivers bad? You're perpetuating a stereotype. But why do the people who hear it get so offended by it? Like, that's the real question. I think everyone has the potential to be great drivers. Everyone has the potential to be great drivers. Have I met plenty of bad dudes driving? Yeah, loads, hundreds. Shit drivers. Have I seen more men get into accidents than women? I've seen men get into more big wrecks. I've seen women get into more minor, like impacts. But I've seen men get into like much larger, bigger. Like when they go for it, they fucking go for it. Like flipping the car on a highway, spinning around, crazy nonsense. But is that a stereotype? Is that even a fact? Is that real? It's just what I've seen. So we all have to be careful with how we say things nowadays. Everybody wants to be mad. instead of wanting to be happy and laugh like ha 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 ha. Like that's funny. That's hilarious. Instead they're like, I'm offended. You're a dick. You know what I mean? So it's tough,
Hey,
man.
hey, I have to ask you real quick. I don't know if you noticed anything about the stream quality, but for a second we lost the connection and then it came back up.
Yeah, I saw that.
So, okay, all right. So, hey, thanks for keeping rolling, and for the people that are out there watching, apologize for the stream. I'm hardwired in. I don't know why the connection cut
Yeah.
out. But staying on the topic. So now, then, okay. So typically, I try to some things I just be like, you know what? It's not worth it. It's not worth it. But this one, I couldn't let go. I didn't address the person, but I wanted to come onto this live stream actually and ask you and to the people that might be
Sure.
watching, okay? Because this was, I mean, when I say fairly recent, me making my post was on Sunday, them seeing and responding to me on Monday. And matter of fact, let me tell you exactly what I wrote to the person back as well. Because I'm somebody, and for people that know me, I don't like conflict actually.
Hmm.
I like
Hmm.
like I am a person that avoids conflict, but there are some things that I'm like I'm putting on my conflict belt because this is happening.
Yeah.
Um, so when the person wrote "don't perpetuate actually they said don't perpetuate stereotypes. So I have to apologize because earlier I think I said that they said don't perpetuate Asian stereotypes, but they said don't perpetuate stereotypes, please. So I wrote, while I can acknowledge what you wrote here, all three of the instances within this 3 week time span had Asian women on the curb. I stopped and helped the second one as I was right behind her. Could I have left it out? Yes. Doesn't change the fact of my post that all three were Asian women that hit this curb over the last 3 weeks. So that's what I wrote that person back, and they just wrote, okay. So
They don't want to. They don't want to engage either.
that was the end of that. All
Yeah.
right. But then to see their post a couple of days later, now this person is of Asian descent, when I looked and read that person's post, which they've done in the past, because
Hmm.
I can say this without putting the person's name out there, because that's what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
But
Don't do
but 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 the thing that says, like, knowing that this is going to be live and that anybody can watch it, and then and the person goes, I wonder if they're talking about me. Um, this person understands the realm of comedy,
that. Hmm.
and they also have made similar perpetuation of stereotypes about their own community in the past. All
See,
right.
that brings up exactly something I wanted to talk about. In
Mm-hmm.
the realm of comedy, for example, it's acceptable for an Asian person to criticize Asian culture. It's acceptable for a black person to criticize black culture. It's not acceptable for a white person to criticize Asian culture because they're capitalizing off of another culture. But if the Asian person is able to capitalize off their own culture, see, and this is we're going to get into something beautiful here. Everybody loves to make fun of white people. So it's okay to do that, but it's not okay for white people to participate in the dialogue anymore, which I think is a really funny thing.
Uh
I'm
huh.
not white, so I love to watch the white people squirm when this happens because they're like, "Well, can I participate in this?" And truthfully, I feel like that's not fair. Like I think that to do that for this person specifically to say you can't perpetuate a stereotype when you're not trying to, you're just putting it out into the ether and asking, is this a thing? For that person to get mad at you, but to then do the same thing because it's okay because they're of the same culture, I think that says everything. I think that in itself is very telling. Because I mean, I bet you that they've made jokes about white people. I bet they've made jokes about other cultures as it pertains to how the Asian culture perceives that culture. So I mean, that's the real question: is who's allowed to? Who's allowed to say what? And if we're all doing it in the name of comedy, then everything is off limits. You just tailor your comedy to the audience you're trying to speak to.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, a black man making a comment about Asian culture as he perceives it is not. Uh, Dave Chappelle does it because he's married to an Asian woman. I mean, he doesn't really do it. He doesn't mostly criticizes black and white culture, which is the general consensus of the country as it is. But I mean, yeah, if you're doing comedy, I mean, it's all things are on the table.
And see, you can branch off of hypocrisy and hypocrites and stereotypes and go into the age old question like Gary Owen, the comedian. Speaking of a
Mm-hmm.
comedian, he is going through a divorce with his current ex-wife Kenya, who is black, all right, and they have mixed children.
And
Black
what is Gary Owen?
Gary Owen is white.
Mm-hmm.
So he did this skit where he didn't say the N word. His wife was kind of sitting on his lap, and then he would go and he talk about something, and then right before the word would come out, his wife would say the word, and then he would finish his statement, be like, because I was trying to be like, and I wrote that, and then he would look at his wife, and then she would say the word, and then look back at him, and then he would finish the sentence. And I just had to sit there and laugh because it went into the whole thing about, how, well, since he's white, he can't say the word, but his black wife can. And then I'm like, all right, so what about mixed kids? You know what I'm saying? How does that work? And you can't tell me that behind closed doors, within his family, Gary Owen hadn't said the word before. You can't tell me that is not a fact.
There's
Can't
plenty
tell
of
me that.
people who are not married to a black person who have said that word behind closed doors. So I mean, it's probably happened. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's awful, but it's probably happened.
So, all right. So, Joe, question, because I I don't know if you know the person that I'm talking about in my story or not,
Nope.
but so the question is this, and to the people who are out there listening, if somebody wants to try to call you out on um doing something, and within a reasonable time period. Like if it's 8 years later, okay, that's different. But to say 2 to 3 days later, you do the same thing that you asked me not to do, like should I
They
open a dialogue to that person and say, hey, here's my observation. Why did you ask me not to do something only for you to turn around and do the same thing? Or should I let it go?
they've probably already unfollowed you, so it doesn't really matter.
They haven't. I checked that. I checked that. I was like, I'm curious if this person has unfollowed me or anything or blocked me, and they
Well,
haven't
it's
yet.
ironic for somebody in the sphere of comedy to get offended by something that you weren't even posing it as a joke, but to make a joke about something almost entirely the same just a few days later is just kind of ironic, um, if not hypocritical. But I mean, maybe they have the golden pass. Maybe they have the right to do that. I don't know. I don't know
Hmm.
how it works. Um, I don't really, I don't really participate in the comedy sphere, but I also don't like to throw stereotypes around either.
Oh, I
But if
do
I
all the
see
time.
something,
I
but if
do all
I
the
mean,
time. Hey, for those of you, let me be clear. I do all the time in the realm of funny.
yeah,
It is my opinion that there is a clear line between being funny and being extremely disrespectful. All
hmm
right. And this is a separate subject because it is my opinion, if you watch Dave Chappelle's latest stand
the
up,
closer.
that it was funny, and in this realm of comedy, great comedy. However, a certain group of individuals or small group of people have been making noise about it lately, saying that, you know, it was this, that, and the third. And I'm like, I can't understand how they're getting to their conclusion watching the same thing that I watch.
They just don't think it's funny. Just because it's not funny to you doesn't mean it's an attack on your people. I
Yep.
mean, people people attacked black people for 200 years. You know what I mean? Like, is he not allowed to make, if he makes a joke about that, like we've been making jokes about black people for, you know, as long as comedy's been around. You know, black people and white people have done that. And and I'm sure at the beginning people were probably offended about it too. And I think they're looking at it the wrong way. And hear me out. I think that in talking about it and joking about it, whether he's serious or not, whether he means it or not, talking and laughing about something like that makes something like that easier to talk about, easier to accept into your life because you've laughed about it. You found a point of something. What he said doesn't go well with a lot of people, or the people in that community, and that's understandable. But for the other people who are trying to ease themselves into this change and transition from not acknowledging the existence of these things into acknowledging the existence of these things, I think that's a stepping stone, the beginning of the conversation, the beginning of the dialogue, and it all starts with a joke. Go back to the 80s. They made lots of jokes about gay people. Eddie Murphy, one of his most iconic things was making fun of the gay community in one of his best stand-up comedies that he ever had. And back then, if we were in 2021, people would be like, "Holy shit, you can't say that. That's fucked up." But since that time, we've come to grow and appreciate and accept the gay community into normal life because it is a normal thing, right? I think it all starts with the comedy. I think getting people to laugh about these things that they're uncomfortable with because they're uncomfortable with something
Yes.
they don't know. This is just the beginning of the conversation. That's why you're mad about it. Give it time. We're working on it, and we're working on it through comedy. Because I can promise you this, in his stand up, we've generated more conversation about their community than the fucking politicians even care to start doing.
There you go.
You know what I mean? We've started a dialogue right now off of this. That's why he's such a genius. Like, love it or hate it, it doesn't matter. You started the conversation and he did it with jokes. If that's not the most poetic thing I've ever heard of. And I don't agree with him. I don't disagree with him. I don't participate in the comedy sphere, so I can't judge him. Did I laugh at some things? Fuck yeah, he's Dave Chappelle. He's a fucking legend. He's an icon. Does he say things in the past that I didn't like? Sure. Yeah, loads of things. But I've seen him incorporate Hispanics and Latinos into his works, and so I appreciate him for putting us in the dialogue and in the conversation. And that's all he's doing with this community. So it's not funny to you now, that's fine. But he's getting people to think about you. And that's something.
I didn't even think about that part, but you are absolutely right. Like the trending words is kind of coming across that, and the dialogue that people are having now around the
Hmm.
subject is
Hmm.
in my opinion, is a beautiful thing. It
It's
is
a
definitely
brilliant thing.
it's definitely a
It's a
brilliant thing.
brilliant thing. And that's the beauty of his genius. Like, he can think about the absolute shitstorm he created. More people are talking about the trans community now than I think we've had in the last 10 years. Let's do this. Let's have this uncomfortable conversation and make some jokes to make people more comfortable with the situation. If you're here to stay, like everyone else is, then join in, participate, Don't stand out and be like, you guys shouldn't have fun. And is it bad for you? I hope it's not. I really hope it doesn't hurt anybody in the community. But I really hope this is the start of that conversation, that we can start being a little bit more comfortable with each other.
I like it. All right. Hey, man. Hey, I knew that this topic was definitely going to get us going. I knew that
Yeah,
it was going to that it was going to generate some dialogue, and I was glad that we did it. Definitely
yeah.
glad that we did it. Now we are running up on the end of the show, and Joe, do you have a word of the day, a wad, if you
I
will?
do have I do have a I do
I'm
have
going
a
to make that be a
what?
thing.
Don't don't. Sounds awful. Um, I do, and I actually, it's funny because you didn't tell me the topic until we were like logging in and getting ready. But I usually have a list of about 5 or 6 words in the queue for these things. So like as I like watch movies, read books, TED Talks, seminars, I listen for like any word that piques my interest. I copy it down, I do a definition search, I learn the word, I learn how to use it and how to say it. But this one I chose because of today's topic. Conciliate.
No, 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 bro. I don't know if you saw my excitement. I literally saw that word yesterday. What's today? Today, Wednesday.
Yeah,
This is the second day that I've worked this week because I'm
because
a
we were
federal
off Monday.
employee and was off on
We
Monday.
were off Monday. Yeah.
I saw this word on Tuesday and I looked at it and I said, that looked like a word that Joe would bring up. So I
Mm-hmm.
looked it up. Oh my God, bro. I looked it up yesterday. I can't tell you what it is now.
Oh,
This
I
would
was
have
like,
been
come on, you
that would have
got
been
it.
so clutch.
That would have been.
Conciliate, conciliate. Ah man, I don't want to bring dead air by trying to guess what it is. So
Okay.
give us the definition, man.
Okay.
Damn, almost had one.
It's to stop someone from being angry or discontented, to placate or to pacify.
Okay, I'm gonna write that last part to placate or to pacify, and spell the word.
Conciliate.
CONCI.
L I A
Got it.
T E.
IAT. Conciliate. To placate.
Or to
Where did it
pacify.
go? Well, I was going to try to add it up and put it up on the screen, but it acted like it did
It ain't
not want
working
to go
today.
up there. So it is not working up there. I'm going to have to hire and fire an assistant so I can blame that person. Conciliate. All right. To placate or to pacify.
Hmm.
Okay.
Stop someone from being angry or discontented.
Okay, to stop someone from being angry or just get man, damn, I almost came through like Jordan,
Yeah,
baby,
that would have been
almost
sick,
came
dude.
through.
That would
All
have been
right,
sick.
conciliate. You know what? I'm gonna have to put this up here because I want to put it down on the show notes afterwards. To placate and see if this works, and then seeing it will allow me to. I spelled placate wrong, but we'll get there. All right. So okay, boom. Hey man, this was a fantastic episode, one of our bi-weekly episodes here. There were some things that I believe that I can clip out of this episode and put in little smaller chunks to paste on our social media platforms to try to generate some discussion. All right,
Mhm.
have some people talking or whatnot. Most
Yeah,
definitely, there was a couple in this episode that I'm like, yep, that one, and that one for
yeah.
sure. So we are done with this week's episode. To the people that tuned in live and watched, hey, we always appreciate you taking the time to come in whenever you have time. Every other Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, Joe and I go live. All right, we're going to do this whether we have 0 people watching or listening or 1,000 people watching or listening, because we have these talks and stuff all the time. And it's a way for me to kind of get stuff through my head. And I use this episode as my own personal should I? Should I bring this up to the other person or not? And after talking with you and thinking some things through, I'm not going to do it. Not because I don't like conflict, because that is true. I avoid conflict like the plague. I just, it's a waste. I know how it's going to go. At least I think I do. So I'm asking myself, if I believe I know how the conversation is going to go, is it worth my time? And I have other things that I could be doing.
There's always that.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, again, thanks for tuning in to the Just Joking podcast. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. Just search for Just Joking Podcast, as well as the audio pull downs from this is going to be on all major podcasting platforms: Spotify, Anchor, Google, all them joints. So if you can't catch us there, listen to us on your road trips, as you're going on your commutes to your work, to go to sleep. Listen to the docile tones of Joe and King.
Our soothing tones as we yell at each other over the microphone.
And be sure to comment anything that you thought about this episode in the comment section if you're catching this on the replay. And that's all I have for marketing. Joe, it's been fun. I'll catch you later, brother.